By the way, is she good with numbers?
Oh, yes. Better than you could think.
Really? True? All right. How much do you have in mind then?
Well, I was thinking you could give her $8 an hour.
$8 an hour? You must be kidding me. How much do you think I make here?
How much you want to give her?
Me $4.
Oh, come on, Sam. That's way below minimum wage. You cannot do that to her.
That's the government's minimum wage. This is under the table. I'm taking a risk here.
We're family.
Take it or leave it. If the government comes here, who are they going to take? I'm the one taking the risk. That's all I have.
You know that's not fair. You know that.
Nothing is fair in life, though.
When does she start?
I was watching TV, a documentary.
Hello. It is 6:30 p.m. in Lagos, Nigeria, 12:30 p.m. in New York City, 5:30 p.m. in Johannesburg, South Africa, and 7:30 p.m. in Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo. Wherever in the world you are watching us, welcome to another episode of 90 Minutes Africa. My name is Rudolph Okonkwo. My co-host, Chido Onoma, is on assignment. His first movie in America, The Story of the Soul Sisters, deals with the friendship between Sade, a Nigerian immigrant, and Sanya, an African-American, as Sade navigates life in America as a newcomer. It won the Best Film by an African living abroad at the 7th African Movie Academy Awards and the Best Emerging Filmmakers Award at the 2021 Roxbury International Film Festival. His second movie, Theory of Conflict, deals with the conflict in the Middle East from the perspective of American, African, and Middle Eastern students at an American university. The movie will have its preview screening on Thursday, December 12th, 2024 at Coolidge Corner Theater on 290 Harvard Street, Brookline, Massachusetts. Now, take a look.
Listen, just think this through. It's not the right decision.
Maybe this way we'll get them to listen to us, and we'll make them listen.
This is not how you listen. Ariel, Nathan, Yosef, Ariel. Please.
It's college
Please don't
campus
follow.
anyway. Someone has to confront him with the truth.
This is not the way.
The World Court called it a gross violation of international law and basic human rights. Yet Israel still continued to build the wall in regions across the occupied Palestinian territory, including in and around East Jerusalem. Some call it the Berlin Wall, but in fact, it's much worse than the Berlin Wall. Many Palestinians have lost their lands, their homes, and their livelihoods. They're literally in prison now in ghettos within the region. Thousands of Palestinians are locked up in Israeli jails, many of them untried and in administrative limbo.
I think you're omitting important facts in this, sir.
What facts?
That this wall was built to prevent militants from entering Israel to carry out acts of terrorism.
That's Israeli propaganda.
Sir, with all due respect, Hamas suicide bombers and their gangs killed hundreds of Israelis. Children, women, elderly. You can't call that propaganda.
What about what happens to us?
And what about the thousands of Palestinians murdered by Israeli soldiers every year?
Property and lives being destroyed.
The lives of women and children.
You don't have to listen to the propaganda.
You don't live there. How do you know? I was in the Israeli military, and I witness this every day.
I grew up there too. And I could tell you stories of little children being killed and families being destroyed.
You don't have to live there to see what's going on. The whole occupation is illegal in the first place. Now, the wall has turned the region into an apartheid region. What did you expect from a people so oppressed? To run over the wall to kiss you?
Israel is a small country that's surrounded by hostile Arab countries who only want to destroy it.
And what, does Israel have the right to occupy other people's land?
That's not other people's land. That's Israel's land, and it has been for thousands of years.
Called Judea and Sumeria.
Yeah, it's called Palestine, but... And the world knows who the real terrorists are.
Yeah, the thousands of settlers killing innocent people on their own property.
You have to stop now or leave my class.
Israeli soldiers are the real terrorists. You are the terrorist. Don't you call me a terrorist. You are the terrorist. Israel is a terrorist nation.
All right, enough.
Guys, stop it! Stop it! This is a lecture hall!
Please join me in welcoming to the show the award-winning director, Rahman Oladigbolu. Rahman, welcome to.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have you. Thank you so much for making our time to join us on this show. So let me start by showing you some headlines from today's newspaper. One says scores killed by Israeli strikes on Gaza. Another one says Pope Francis calls for investigation to determine if Israelis' attack in Gaza constitutes genocide. What do you make about the situation in the Middle East?
Well, the situation in the Middle East right now is chaotic at best, is to describe it. It's things are chaotic, but it's not just in the Middle East. It has reverberations around the world, and that's also because it also has implication for the rest of the world. But right now, things don't look good. The war that started about a year ago, the recent episode, has been growing wider and wider than anticipated. People have been thinking that we probably could reach a ceasefire, and through that we can have a negotiation that would keep things calm, as it has been doing periodically for some time. But now with the war branching into Hezbollah, Iran, and all of it, nobody really knows where things are going. So everyone is making efforts to try to see how we can tame this thing. But yeah, it's uncertain at this point.
You said everyone is making efforts. Who are the people making efforts?
The people in the international community who, at the different levels of capacity that people can do something, even all the way to the streets where you have people who are protesting and asking for ceasefire, all the way to governments around the world, those who have some leverage to be able to do something, those who are, and those who really have the leverage and maybe not really necessarily moving things forward, but appearing as if they're trying to do something. So that's the situation of it, and those are the people that I'm referring to, even including, like, say, Pope John Paul. The Pope that as you mentioned right now, also trying to make sense of whether to consider something a genocide or not.
But when was the last time the Pope said something and people moved?
Well, that's a good point. Can't remember that, but it has its own moral weight that it can add to all that's going on, and that's what it's doing.
All right, it's something important happened last week, I believe, or the week before, when America, United States, elected Donald Trump as their incoming president. Did that change anything?
Not really. But also, on this particular conflict, this particular Gaza incursion and everything that's going on, we are not very sure exactly what may happen. simply because the president-elect is someone that's unpredictable, and depending on how he's moved, and a lot of other political contingencies reflect at the time that they're talking about it. It could go either way. So in that sense, some people are still sitting down and waiting, anticipating what he will do. But on the ground, he hasn't changed anything.
What do you want him to do?
What would I want him to do? I think it will be best if first they can just stop the assaults, the bombs, and all of these things, because the people that are really at the bottom of all of these, the people that are suffering, that all the ego fights and the political maneuverings within each country, within each community, and all of it. But the people that are really suffering from it are the people on the ground, the ordinary people, citizens who have no major contributory power to the decisions that's causing all the terrible things to them. So it will be important for them to find a way to stop the bombings first, and that is not a difficult thing to do. Once they are able to really get their priority straight and realize that we are killing ordinary citizens. We are killing innocent children just born how long ago, children who have no idea, no clue, all what's been going on for decades. These are the people that we are killing, and that's why he has to stop. That's the first thing to do.
The leadership of Hezbollah, they've been wiped out, virtually all of them. This morning, Israel killed the spokesperson of that group, and also the leadership of Hamas to a large extent. Do you think that there's a chance that they will end their approach to their agitation, including using violence? Will this end violence from those groups?
I doubt it. I would wish that the violence ends. The violence from their side, I don't see it helping at all. So I will see that end. But however, when you look at the politics of all of this, would the fact that the victory edge that Israel has over them, will that end their willingness to do violence? I doubt it. But it could be an opportunity for people who are really genuine about peace, genuine about resolving this problem, to come in and really be able to make them see that it will be a good time to put down all this weaponizing themselves and trying to continue to cause this bloodshed. Because no matter what it is, they are part of the problem. And it's important that they stop the violence.
Why people are blaming Israel for the level of force being used? Why is it that again? I say why people are blaming Israel for the kind of response they've decided to use, the level of violence and force and the destruction. Do we hear people in the Arab world calling on Hamas, Hezbollah to basically find a different way to approach this struggle?
Not loud enough. If we have in few places, but still not loud enough. And I think it is important, not necessarily even to say the Arab world, although yes, it will be important to have that from the Arab world. And the reason being that the problem has, some people will say, it's not complicated. It's it's just a matter of give the land back and things like that. Yes, the issue of the land is a problem, and to be able to divide it and have people live their lives is very important. But to think that it's not complicated, I think it's a misapprehension of what's going on. The complexity of it. Some of these leaders that we're talking about in the Arab world, what was their position before things changed on October 7th? So if we look deeper at all of these, you realize that they themselves have been part of the problem. And when people are, all of us, when we are reacting to things that's happening right in front of us, when we are just reacting, it keeps the cycle of the violence, of the madness, lack of understanding of the subtlety of all of this. It keeps that cycle going on. And that's what you see even in the Arab world. Many of them are not really thinking deep in terms of how can we solve this problem. Already before October 7th, many of them were already moving on. Part of why Hamas did what they did on October 7th was to be able to stop the movement of a lot of the Arab countries from normalizing situations with Israel. And so you now have the October 7th occurred and all the attack from Israel, and now they are trying to change their position and saying one thing or another, and of course not even talking about Hamas, as you just pointed out. So they are reacting to the political surface of what's going on, not really taking it deep. So I see that problem beyond them just coming out to say anything to Hamas. But yes, it would be great if they could pick it up and actually not even just saying something outright, but finding something concrete to negotiate, to talk with the people themselves, with the Palestinians.
You said something now that is interesting. I know I've had it before, that basically they're using the lives of their people to bring attention to the fact that most Arab countries were moving towards having relationship with Israel. So they launched the attack on October 7th. Is that what you said?
That's exactly not the way I phrased it. That's not exact. No, the idea of they using the lives of their people is not how I will phrase it, because number one, I don't know what their mindset was pre-October 7th, whether they were thinking that the whole thing would devolve into Israel bombing more than 40,000 people as official numbers now. I don't know whether that's what they were thinking, but of course they were thinking of aggravating the situation. They were thinking of causing uproar that would lead to the Arab people pulling back. And of course, we can also look, when we look at the history also, the fact that, yes, things have happened in the past that they start the war, it's the people that suffer, like the most recent one back in 2014. It's the people that suffer, and yet they started this one. The judgment of Hamas being able to, the judgment regarding considering the lives, the situations of their people is not something that I will rely on as sane in the first place, because we look at it in the sense that they start the war knowing that all of this will happen. Whether I know that they were thinking about it like that pre-October 7 or not, but one thing is clear: whenever this situation aggravate like this, it's the ordinary citizens, the ordinary Palestinians living in Gaza that suffer it, and also even in the West Bank. So I will expect a true leader would consider the safety of its own people when taking actions, and I don't see that in any consideration that Hamas is doing.
Could it be that the past incidents that they were, the leadership were not impacted as much as this time, that they could, like the one that was in Qatar? I think he was in Qatar and then he went to Iran and he was killed in Iran. Do you think that not just about Hamas or Hezbollah, but other freedom fighters who could stay abroad and cause harm to their own people in the name of fighting, that this might change the calculation? Is that what you are getting at?
I don't know if that can change the calculation, because you see the mentality there. That's why I said this thing is not as simple as people tend to approach it, which is why for me, with my film, the idea that I'm trying to advocate is for people to step back, that we can continue in the tradition that we have been doing in the last 7 decades or more. that we have to step back and approach this from a different angle, because part of the problem here is also the mentality of the people. There is the complication that religion brings into this, and when it comes to the Palestinian people and the leadership of the Palestinian people, especially given a lot of them are Christians, so it's not to think that maybe they are all Muslims. No, a lot of them are Christians. So, but there are elements of political Islam that surfaces in all of this, which the Hamas, like when you see the Hamas militants that incorporate Islamic, what they consider Islamic ideals into their efforts. And when they go out to fight, they see themselves fighting for God, and when someone sees him or herself fighting for God, it's very problematic, so we have that there. And when people die, according to this mindset, when people die, when we see it as, we say, oh, that person is going to paradise now, and that also become a motivation for them to take political actions. All of these also complicate things very drastically. So when you look at these leaders, where they were killed, there is still always this idea of seeing them as martyrs. You understand, as that matters that they're going to heaven or something like that. If that is part of the motivation, for political dealing with political problems, it's really, really complicated. And you see, even a lot of the children killed, it disturbs me when I see people being killed, and you're referring to them as martyrs, going to heaven. I mean, I don't understand politically what value do we give to these lives politically in the first place. So I don't see that. I don't know how that's going to play into it, but I doubt looking at if there is no external intervention to be able to really bring the temperature of everything going down on both sides. I don't know if I can say I see anything changing in that.
All right. I just want to point out that there are only 3% population of Palestinians are Christians. So it's not a lot. So, but we'll get to that when we talk about how Africans, especially Nigerians, are reacting to the crisis in the Middle East. And then we come to your movie and we will talk about that. But before then, I wanted to respond to this. This is a headline from New York Post this weekend. It says, Muslim voters who helped elect Trump upset with pro-Israeli and pro-war cabinet picks. There were a lot of people during the election who were saying they will not vote for Harris because the government of Biden did not stop Israel from the actions the country took in the Middle East. They voted for Trump, but now they are complaining that Trump is picking people who they know from their past activities that they are not interested in stopping Israel or stopping the war. So what do you make of that?
I'm not surprised. I mean, the writing's already on the wall. It was just that they didn't see that when they were deciding to vote Donald Trump because of that issue. And I can understand, one can understand the mental state. But that still brings us back to the idea of not reacting to the surface events that we see, because people make decisions with a complex mindset. A lot people factor so many things into making a decision. So not that I would say to vote for Harris because Harris would know. They didn't see the sign, and so there was no conviction of saying, oh, maybe Harris will do differently from Biden. There was no sign of that. But to think Donald Trump will be different, was a mistake. Excuse me. What Donald Trump have done in the past had not shown the promise of him doing something different. And for them to come out openly like that, even those who decided not to vote, it's not something that anyone with clear eye will see that is a better option to do. So it's not surprising what's happening right now. It's just that how they let emotions determine how they cast their vote was the problem that they need to consider moving forward, to think beyond just their immediate emotions.
Let's look at Africa, Nigeria. Every year at the United Nations, African countries go there and speak about the situation in the Middle East. This year, they all came there and they all talked about the need to have a two-state solution. Shetima, the vice president of Nigeria, did the same thing as like other African countries. Why do you think we are concerned about what's happening in the Middle East more than we are concerned about what's happening in the Northeast of Nigeria?
Very good question. People are concerned because, number one, the big players on the world stage, like the United States, the Western nations, they make this a big deal. And then we have the media turn on it. Those are immediate reasons that I can point at. You turn on the newspaper and that's what you see, and things like that. So you can say that makes people see, and especially with the social media now, we know, of course, social media makes people even more aware of it than in the past. But that's just the surface reasons. There are deeper reasons, in the sense that the religions that we have around Africa, the dominant religions, Islam, Christianity, it positions us to think that this conflict is that we are part of this conflict, because people see it from the point of view of religion. When you talk to people in Nigeria or other places, Christians tend to support Israel in the conflict, whether they know about the details of the conflict or not. And Muslims tend to support the Palestinians. So those are things that are basic in how we perceive these things. And over the years also, it's a major global conflict, in the sense that it's something that has been featured on the major decision stage, like the United Nations. So all of them have been, if you look at even in the 60s, 70s, African nations made decisions based on certain things on this issue, Israel-Palestine conflict. So even you remember Nigeria also at some point joining the OIC. This tells you how the religion really factor into the way we look at ourselves and the way we consider what we do. So seeing them doing that at the United Nations, coupled with what's going on, I think you make it understandable that they will. But to ignore the problems going on in their own country is another thing that they are not paying attention to, because even some of them use this, whether consciously or subconsciously, they use this to distract people from their lack of action on the problems that we have at home that they're supposed to be taking care of. So that's also one thing to think about. But they come to the United Nations. It's not. I mean, the United Nations. Yes, I would say it's an organization that's supposed to be able to help to take care of, find a way to resolve this conflict. But we all know that the power of the United Nations is not in the body of the United Nations. So they keep coming year after year, but nothing has changed since. Things just keep devolving, ever since.
All right. At this point, let's take a look at a clip from your first movie, Soul Sisters, and then we'll come back and then figure out how you went from telling the story of a Nigerian immigrant in America to talking about the Middle East.
Okay. By the way, is she good with numbers?
Oh yes, better than you could think.
Really? That true? All right. How much do you have in mind then?
Well, I was thinking you could give her $8 an hour.
$8 an hour? You must be kidding me. How much do you think I make here?
How much you want to give her?
Me $4.
Ah, come on, Sam. That's way below minimum wage. You cannot do
that's
that
the
to her.
government's minimum wage. This is under the table. I'm taking a risk here.
We're family.
Take it or leave it. If the government comes here, who they're gonna take? I'm the one taking the risk. That's all I have.
You know that's not fair. You know that.
Nothing is fair in life, Dad.
When does she start?
I was watching TV, a documentary.
All right, that was Soul Sisters. The problem of immigration in America has not been solved, and you moved on to the Middle East, another problem that is difficult to be solved. So how did you transition from telling a story of life of an African immigrant in America to going to the Middle East to tackle the issues over there?
Yeah, there's an underlying connection between it. The two situations is the people, human beings. You know, I'm telling the story of human beings. I'm telling the story of our problems. Trying to find how we got into the problems that we are, and possibly finding how we can get out of it. And it's human beings from one side to the other. So it's not difficult for me to contain from moving from that to it all boils down to the same thing: the human psyche, whether in the context of the Sade immigration or in the context of the Israel-Palestine conflict. It's the problem is the human psyche, the human mind. That's how I see things, and that's the story that I'm trying to tell. The story of how the human mind gets itself into the situation it finds itself, but also the two situations also connect in the sense that I found myself in them directly. The time I was, I'm an immigrant in the United States, so that story of Sade comes natural, given that it's something that I was exposed to. And secondly, the other one also, it's a story of a group of students on a college campus dealing with this issue on their campus, and I happen to be one of the students. I happen to be in the midst of them. So this is also a story that touched my skin at the time, and I thought to make it into a movie. So it also connects at that level.
About the problem with the human mind. What's wrong with the human mind? Is there a new problem? When did that happen?
Well, it's a problem that we've been dealing with for a long time, and it's not new. It's just that it's the same thing. We keep ourselves in the cycle. People have been talking about it for ages. How we, the self-centeredness of the human mind, the indulgence, greed, and things like that, and these are all the things that are beneath all the problems that we have. You can't see where someone or a group of people, you have a balanced mindset, and you get into trouble. It's only when you have an unbalanced mindset, when you're desiring, pursuing something so self-centeredly, and either as a politician trying to win votes, or an individual trying to make a lot of money from something, or trying to be famous, or trying to when we desire all sorts of things that we don't have control over, that's when we find ourselves doing horrible things, and yeah.
For those who are struggling to understand, where is the balance in the conflict in the Middle East? Where is the middle ground?
The middle ground?
Yes, the middle ground. What do you consider the middle ground? How do you think that could be resolved? What's wrong with the human mind?
You see, the middle ground, now we're stepping out from the individual human mind to the society. Like, where do you resolve it? Theory of conflict. Number one, theory of conflict. When you see the film, it points light at some of these problems that we have. The solution is in the hands of the people. I don't have a solution that I'll say, this is what you do. No, I don't. I can look and imagine. For example, I would say, why can't two states, the two people be living in two states side by side? I don't see any problem with it. Why can't they be living in one state? I don't see any problem with it. It all depends on the way the people see themselves, the way the people see their situation, and they want to resolve it. It's all a matter of, and that's why one of the goals, the main goal of theory of conflict, is to be able to try to let the two sides see one another. You understand? To see the humanity of one another, because when we are able to see the humanity of one another, we can be able to coexist. There is a proverb, a Yoruba proverb, that says, if there is love, a matchbox, 10 people can live in a matchbox. If there is love, and love comes when we are able to see the humanity of one another. And that's what I'm trying to do with the film. The effort to be able to, now when people see the humanity of one another, when they see all of these things, realizing that I'm looking at you and I see that I'm just a mirror copy of you. We are looking for the same thing in life. And we can work together towards it. We don't have to kill each other. When we are able to see that, all forms of arrangements can be solutions that people can create on their own. So that is up to them. My goal is to make the effort to try to tell the stories and let people see one another.
What do you think is responsible for our inability to see that, what you are trying to point out? Why is that difficult?
Our conditioning is the primary thing. Our conditioning, the way when we are born into the world, we are born into different environments, and as we grow up with all different things related to the different environments that we have, and we take these things as if they are eternal. And we form identities that exclude others. You see, once we start forming identities that exclude others, we're already creating grounds for conflict with those others. And that's the thing. It comes naturally when you are born, to see. You see yourself, you see your mom, your father, and we grow within that kind of, and especially the religion, the national and religious identities, they become very strong in the way that we teach religion and we teach nationalism in some sense. And when that becomes hardened into something that doesn't make it easy for other identities to coexist, that's when we have the problem. Religion, for example, is one of our conditioning that creates the problem. When religion is taught in the sense that my religion is the only religion that God takes, yours is not, then the idea of trying to have you join my religion, sell my religion to you. There are a whole lot of psychological motivations behind that people don't realize, and that these are what cause the conflict, and it doesn't matter. One thing is that once we live in this kind of mindset, in this kind of world, it doesn't matter whether we are even of the same religion. If I'm able to win you over to my religion, it's just a matter of time. There is something that will still come out to divide us. Maybe I'll tell you that, oh, you are not doing that religion properly. This is not the right way to do it. Look at a young lady that was killed in Iran. Iran, they've been telling everyone you must cover your head, you must wear hijab. This lady was wearing hijab, and she was arrested on the flimsy basis that she wasn't covering properly. In the first place, were you talking about a proper way of doing it? You just said, So these are the nitbits, things that come to once you have a mindset of division, a mindset of conflict. That's what leads us into.
All right, so you're going to have a preview screening of this movie on December 12th. What would that look like? Where is that?
It's going to be at Coolidge Corner, the Coolidge Corner Theater in Brookline. And we are hoping, and also we want to make it available online at the same time, so that people who are not in Massachusetts at the time, they can still watch it online. We'll use we have an Eventbrite that we have our page there, and people who sign in through the Eventbrite will be able to receive the link about 30 minutes or an hour before the film starts. So we want to make sure that people are also able to see it anywhere around the world.
Now, working on this movie, did you learn anything about people, relationship, and religion that will be of interest to people in Nigeria who are confronting similar issues?
Excuse me. Not just in making the film. I think it has been part of it from the start, the idea that in Nigeria, our stories right now, our identities are connected deeply with this conflict in the Middle East. Just like the way you have a lot of Muslims in Nigeria and a lot of Christians in Nigeria that already picking the sides that they have, whether they really know the details of the conflict or not. So we have that problem that's there. So it's so that in that sense it is, and I think it connects deeply to the idea that how we see what we learn through this experience can also help us in the way we also live with ourselves in Nigeria, because right now the way we are broken each other into hardcore tribes, hardened case tribes, to say you belong to one tribe or the other, and you are not able to resolve problems. These are identities that are typically superficial identities that should not be able to obstruct us from being able to live together. And then you have the religious problem also, the idea of how we have taken religion. So it's interesting to see whenever we're having elections, like you see, you'll be talking about Muslim tickets, Muslim, Christian. It's first thing you'll be looking for people who are competent, and then we'll be looking for the tribe that fits this particular time, and then we'll be looking for the religion. These are all the different identities that we have shredded ourselves into, and this brings us into all sorts of conflict like this. So if we're able to pay attention to ourselves and see the superficiality of all of these, and we're able to see the humanity of one another and the necessity of being able to create opportunities for everyone around the country, I think that is something that's important that we can gain from this as well.
Is religion the problem?
in a way, directly like that, is religion the problem? Currently, religion is a problem in the world. Religion is a problem. Now, is religion supposed to be a problem? It depends on how we define religion. Philosophically, we can look at what is actually religion. What is religion, as we're talking about? But currently, in the way the majority of the people see religion, religion is a problem because religion divides. In the way we see religion right now, once you have something that divides people, you already create a template for fight, for conflict. And until we are able to see beyond that division that religion creates, we are going to continue having problems. So in that sense, yes, religion is a problem that needs to be overcome. Now it's different from if we interpret religion to be a relationship of the individual to the world. As an individual, you find yourself in the world and you're trying to understand yourself in connection to the universe and everything. To see, these are deep philosophical inquiry that leads to something that I could call a religious inquiry. For millennia, I'll say the most important thing that the thinkers of every age has been talking about, the most important thing was the idea of man, know thyself. If we don't extend religion beyond that, religion is not going to be a problem, because it's going to be a self-inquiry that will lead you to understanding everybody else in the world. But when we form religion into organizations, that is where the problem starts.
Some people say that Christianity went through a reformation. Did it come out better?
Did it come out better? Let me see. I'm trying to quickly thinking of different countries and the way it's unfolding in many areas. It's different from the way it was during the time of the 30-year war and things like that in Europe. It's definitely different now. But as long as it's still an organization, it's an organized form of religion, it's always still going to be part of it. Now I know, so thinking that maybe that kind of reformation, because I know that's one of the questions that comes next, if such a reformation can come in Islam, that it may lead Islam to, it can do that. But the problem is that once you have it organized, that is when the ground for.
Hold on. What's wrong with organization being organized? How can you have a group of people together without having it being organized?
Well, when you organize religion, that's when you start teaching specific things, because whatever when it becomes organized, it becomes our own. The people within the fold of that organization, it becomes our own, and the people who are not there, they are excluded, and they become others. So when it comes to religion is such a close subject to human beings, which is what makes it more complicated than, say, for example, any other kind of organizations that people don't form with that kind of eternity as we tend to expect with religion. So that is what it is. When it becomes organized, it becomes ours. Then you have people who will be teaching others, this is how you do things, this is how you do things right. And then you have the competitions, the rivalries with other organized religion, other group. So those kinds of things, that's what it will be. And religion is not something to be organized. So that is where the problem of it. Let me even give you an example. Buddhism. When you study religions, Buddhism is one of, as a body of ideas, Buddhism is one of the most beautiful forms that religion can take, because Buddhism goes into the psychological underpinnings of life, and it tries to show you why you want this, how you know, and all of this. So Buddhism doesn't, from its start, it doesn't have that organized template. It doesn't create that template for organization to be, or when people come together, it gives you a sense that you're working on yourself. You understand? That's the important thing. It's not about, you know, you're working on yourself. But today, and because of that, for generations, Buddhism has been a religion that's considered the most peaceful religion, that they will say, the most peaceful religion. But go to Myanmar now. In Myanmar, the people who are killing the Muslims, they were Buddhists. And it's because of the sense of our religion, you understand, against this other religion. That is what is making them into this killing machine now.
I mean, I don't understand, but maybe the viewers can understand you in terms of organization, because you have lawyers, you have different professions. The lawyers call themselves learned people, the other ones are not learned. Engineers have the association. So I don't think the organization is a problem. Maybe it's something else. But let me ask you directly. Islam, I know you are a Muslim. I don't know if you are still practicing or not, but Islam, do you think it should have a form of reformation? And what should that be, if you are going to say that?
If I was going to say that Islam should have reformation, well, any reformation would be welcome. And for me, if you would talk about reformation, the kind of reformation that I see is fundamentally how people will be able to just see that you can be a Muslim practicing your religion, but know that the other person that's not a Muslim, nothing makes you different from them and nothing makes you better than them. If this is introduced and and merged into the religion, and not that it's not there. There are Muslims who you will say they have that mentality as well. But when we think our religion is the only way, the problem still always comes back, no matter what. So if you reform, all the things that you can reform are there. The politicization of it, the whole how do you call it? The forming nations and under with Sharia law and things like that. People not understanding what is Sharia law and all of these things. You can reform all sorts of things and try to respect people's human rights as much as possible. But as long as we still have that division, one day will always come there. And I'll give you one. Let me one thing too. That is one of the reasons why I don't completely agree with people who do interfaith, the interfaith organization. We can have interfaith, and I think it's when we are able to bring people together and they help, it's fine. But the problem with interfaith is still that the fact that at the base of all of these things, there is still a mentality that if I'm a Muslim, I'm doing this, I'm different from you. What you're doing makes you different from me. You understand? It is a problem that we may be able to tolerate each other due to the interfaith movement right now, but down the line, one day a problem can come up. It may not even be with us. Maybe 100 years later or something, a problem comes up, and the group that we considered as order becomes the enemy automatically. That's the way the human mind have been working in history, if you look into history. So that's why we can reform as much as we want, but at the base of the whole thing, we want to be able to create a world where human beings will see one another as human beings, not through the lens of anything else.
Let me ask you, if you have the power, will you want to see a change in certain things in Islam? I'll give you an example. Recently, there was a celebration of an Igbo man who became the chief imam in Abuja. But from, maybe it's not in the doctrine, but from one of the stories we do hear from the North, if there is someone who is a Muslim who decided on their own that they wanted to join another religion like Christianity, it becomes a problem. Why is that?
That's exactly, it goes back to the problem that we're talking about now, the whole problem of the division that's already on the ground. You divide people, you create situations like that, because when people join your religion, and these are all part of some sort of immature way of seeing religion in the world. I also ask myself sometimes, like, if somebody joins a religion that I consider mine, then I rejoice. People rejoice. Hey, but when someone from my religion joins the other religion, you don't like it. And then when you have a certain amount of power, then you exercise that power over it. That's what you see, as you said, in the North, because it's not just in the North. It's a mentality that every one of us have. But wherever you have a little bit of power to exercise, to do something about it, and you have someone emotional enough, then they go out and do something about it. They say it's even to the point of the apostasy law that they talk about, so all of those things. So it's yes, that needs to be stopped. People need to be educated better, than to react like that. But yeah, it's still the same thing that we're talking about, the whole idea of division.
In 4 minutes, we are going to let people in so that they can ask questions. But let me ask you this. It's maybe it's complex, but in the modern state structure, there have been issue with the relationship between the state and religion, and you see the experiment in America where they try to separate religion from the state. That is coming back together now, because that experiment, it appears a lot of people are not happy with that because they tend to have forgotten what it used to be like. Now, if you come home to Nigeria and you look at, there are some Muslims in states like Osun State, Oyo State, even Lagos State, complaining about representation in government at the state level. But then at the national level, you had for the first time Muslim ticket, and it freaked out some Christians. So when you see something like that, do you think we've evolved enough, matured enough to say that it didn't matter, that even if they are all Muslims, everybody who runs the country, they are all Muslims, that's okay, or they're all Christians, that it's okay? Have we gotten to that point? And if we have not, do we still have to make sure that we consider representation in these structures of political governance?
That's a good point. I think it still matters because it's still a problem. That's where the whole idea that it's education, enlightenment of people that can carry us to a place where it doesn't matter. Right now, it matters in the minds of majority of Nigerians. And when we do it, it's like, for example, what about the people that you put there? Say you put the Muslim people there, or Christian people. Are they going to be also seeing it as an opportunity to forge their religion forward and over people? Are they going to be Muslim leaders or Christian leaders, or they're going to be Nigerian leaders? So that is the problem, that it is deeper than on the surface that would say no. So it matters that people will still consider that, but we have to find a way to continue to move towards letting people, you see, when it doesn't matter anymore, it's not going to be in our selection to say where it's going to be, that even the whole conversation of Muslim and things like that will not come up anymore. You understand? That is when we are not going to decide whether it matters or not, because when people are enlightened enough to the point that it doesn't, then it won't. But right now they see one another and it matters. And even the people you put in there get in there, and they start to behave in that way. So it matters when you consider this. I have seen in places that, for example, in Yoruba land, I've heard some people who say, "Oh, we need a certain number of Christian obas in Yoruba land to be able to," that becomes an agenda. And so, would we say it doesn't matter? Someone like me, I'll say it doesn't matter. Where I'm from, in Oyo, we are trying to select a new king. It has been the tradition for some decades that the Alaafin of Oyo will be Muslim. And now we have a Christian among the candidates, actually maybe more than one. And there is the discussion about whether Oyo can select a Christian Oba. And I was like, what makes it that if you can have a Muslim Alaafin, then you can have a Christian Alaafin? But the whole point is just that how we wouldn't be able to be needing to talk about Christian or not looking at one another like that. But it's because the agenda is there for some people, and the agenda is there for everyone according to their religion, wanting to impose their religion on others. So these are where all the problems still lies. And until we are able to understand beyond that, I don't see how we can do it. So
you talked about when we are enlightened. Do you have an example of a people who have become enlightened where these things are not important to them?
Yes. First, I know I keep going to the tradition that I know well. In Yoruba land, there wasn't anything like this before. Before the incursion of Christianity and Islam in Yoruba land, there wasn't any thing like that. So the religion wasn't something that mattered when it came to anything that you were doing. There wasn't the idea, because the idea that you have was that the whole idea of belonging to a religion is where the corruption started.
So you think the religion that are problematic are Christianity and Islam?
They are the ones that have been causing the trouble for because these are the two major religions that have been trying to spread and conquer the rest of the world. So yes, they are the two problems are where the two religions are where we have the problems at most.
So you think Africans will be better off if they pull back from Islam and Christianity?
Yeah, that's part of now being enlightened that we're talking about. Yeah, Africans will be better off if they are enlightened enough to see all of these things. Well, if you are able to see through all of these, and then these religions don't divide us anymore, then yes, we will greatly do well. But as long as we still have, because it's like we talk about decolonization. But the whole mentality of what we're still dealing with is still the way the Western world and the Arab world have been competing to divide the world among themselves through the religions. It's still the same thing that we are doing. So when I see Africans, you're trying to say you are African, you're a Pan-African thing, you're trying to do the thing, and then you're calling you're so devoted as a Christian or as a Muslim, you can be truly African in the way unless your mentality grows beyond this, and at that point it doesn't matter what you do. You can improve on the continent, on the lot of the continent, but as long as we still hold on to these religions and all of these things, yes, it's part of the problem.
All right, one last question. Your next movie is Private Experience, and it's based on a short story by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. What are you trying to accomplish with that?
It's the same idea, hoping to be able to serve as an opportunity for people to see a better world. and a better world coming from within themselves. I like the story very much in the way it's written, the way Chimamanda Adichie presents it in there, that you see these two young women from two different religions, two different tribes, and they find themselves hiding in the same small shop when this outside world divided into tribes and religion is burning, and they are trying to save themselves. And through that, they're able to see the humanity of one another, you know, right there. And that cuts through, that transcends what's going on outside. And that's why I like it, in the sense that if we could come down to that, to just sit down and see that humanity of one another, we will do wonders, you know. And that's why I like it. And that's, so it's a step towards that education, that enlightenment that I hope that people can have.
All right, we take a break. When we come back, we take questions from the audience. Stand by. We are talking to movie director Rahman Oladigbolu.
she good with numbers?
Oh yes, better than you could think.
Really? That true?
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're having a conversation with Rahman Oladigbolu, who is the director of a new movie, Theory of Conflict, which is having its preview screening in Boston area on the 12th of December. All right, so Rahman, welcome back. And let's see, for those who are interested in joining us, when you come into the studio, turn on your camera so we can lay you in. And please, let's see, I see some people there. Welcome to the show, Righteous Man. How are you?
Dr. Rudolph, good evening. And our guest, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Righteous
Dr.
Man,
Rudolph, I'm not hearing you.
Do you have a question for Rahman?
Yeah, just one simple question, sir. The president, I live in Lagos. Our president attended the Arab Islamic convention, and I want to find out from your own perspective, is Nigeria an Islamic or Arab nation? Because I have not been able to have the understanding why the government of Nigeria will be represented in such an organization. Basically has to do with issue of religion and the issue of the Arab civilization. So why will Nigeria have the #1 citizen representing there and making speeches demanding for two-state solution between the Palestinians and the Israeli? So I want to know, is Nigeria now an Arab nation or an Islamic nation? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Righteous Man. Rahman.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's an important question for us to ask, and I don't have an answer for you whether Nigeria is an Islamic nation or not. We are all Nigerians, and I think it's a question that we all have to answer. Whether Nigeria is an Islamic nation that belongs in the OIC, but where we'll see the problem coming is that our governments decided at some points to join. I believe it was a military government that joined, so there was no question of asking. But of course, since then, after the military regimes ended, have we decided to look at the nations that alliances that we form and things like that, and examine the reasons why we joined these organizations? So if we look at the OIC, why did we join the organizations for Islamic countries when you have half of the population being non-Muslims? So these are part of the problems that we're facing in Nigeria still. The idea of just being able to have a small group of people making decisions that are far-reaching like that. And when it comes to the issue of the Israel-Palestine conflict, we should keep in mind that not only Nigeria, a lot of African countries have had to take position on that in the 60s, in the 70s, because among the Committee of Nations, they all have to make such declarations, such decisions, and make alliances. And that, I think, is okay, because that's based on global political issues that they are all taking a stance on. And that is different from now having Nigeria to join the Organization of Islamic Countries. So it's a good question that I think we must demand answers from leaders that continue to honor that.
All right, thank you, Rahman. Let's go to half of Turkey is in Europe. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hi, Rahman.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Your name is interesting, though.
Yeah, I made it. Panelists know why I made it because someone made a claim and said Turkey was not in Europe. So I changed my original name to that. Just it's a slight, not a real slick jab at somebody. So what I want to say, Rahman, I was gonna. It's not more of a question, but because you're the guest and the rules are we are supposed to ask questions. I would have loved
you can make a comment if you don't have a question. You can make it.
Okay. So thank you. So there was certain corrections I just wanted to make on certain things you statements you made, and I think, in essence, we tend to conflate how Islam is being run in the Arabias, how it's supposed to be run, and how it is being carried out in Nigeria. So when we make statements like it needs reform, right? And then you say, well, if he could be, he asks you how you would like to see it reformed if you could have a reform. And you say, well, for example, letting people carry out their religion as they deem fit without maybe oppressing them or criticizing them. Without going too much into it, I mean, based on your name, and he said he doesn't know if you practice, and I don't know how learned you are in that aspect of theology. You would know this phrase, lakum dinukum waliyadin, for example. So lakum dinukum waliyadin, for those that don't know, is one of the essential phrases in Islam, which basically means to each his own. There's no compulsion in religion. You cannot force anybody to become Muslim, for example. So in the case of like apostasy, where you brought up the girl that was killed, you would agree that, again, these are people that are carrying it out in ways that it is not supposed to be carried out. Because apostasy itself does not mean that automatically a person needs to be put to death. Yes, there's a caveat to it, but there are certain stages where you have to pass, where maybe the person starts denigrating their God or denigrating the faith itself and becomes a danger to society. Of course, nobody wants an enemy of the state within their midst. Nobody wants a fifth columnist. Finally, there was something you said about I'll say finally without taking time. But excuse me, because Jida is up there, and I really like Jida a lot. So you said about the support in that the Arab leaders, the Muslim world, as you put it, has basically been lending to Hamas and Hezbollah, which I don't think is right, as we know, because outside of Qatar and Iran, maybe Lebanon, which Lebanon really doesn't have any power influence. Outside of Iran and Qatar, Hamas and Hezbollah have not been receiving any support. And that might lend to the fact that there's a divide in the Muslim world itself based on the Shia and the Sunni sects. And as you will be aware, and I believe you will be, in fact, in the holiest lands of the Islamic world, which is Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia, you cannot advocate for Palestine. Advocating for Palestine, actually, whether it is through symbols, flags, shirts, and absolutely no speeches, will lead to you most likely being incarcerated or kicked out of the country and barred. They did that during the...
All right. Round up, please.
All right, so they did that during the Hajj. So these are things I just wanted to bring up that I think the audience, people listening, should know. And I'll end it with that. And congratulations on your movie premiere. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
So before we go to Jide, Rahman, when he was speaking, I got something I wanted you to explain. If you know, who should determine how Islam should be practiced?
That's a good question. Um, um, number one, I will say that is the problem that an organized religion would have. When we're talking of something being organized, you will expect that someone will be up there. Even in Christianity, the Pope doesn't. People don't listen to the Pope. Even not all Catholics listen to the Pope. So, who do you say has the rights, the power to determine and things like that? When during the Salah, whenever you're having the festivals, people look towards, like in Nigeria, we look towards Sultan of Sokoto, to be able to tell whether they've seen the moon or not, and things like that. So, but when it comes to the general religion, people people interpret religion in different ways. That's where the problem is. There is no single place where you say someone is supposed to make pronouncements for the religion and that everyone will take. It's difficult for you to be able to, for example, he mentioned the Shia Sunni divide. That is also one thing. Is the person making that pronouncement is going to be a Sunni or Shia, and so it's a difficult thing to determine, and that is the contradictions that some other people have when we start saying, oh, someone does something somewhere, and some of us will say, oh, that's not Islam. It's written in so, just like half of Turkey in Europe just try to point at some verses. You describe those verses. Some other people will take some other verses that may be not directly in agreement with that, and that's what they will emphasize. So it's hard to say one religion is one way or another. It's difficult to say Islam is this, Islam is that. Even for the people who are moderate in whatever sense they had, it's difficult to say this is Islam or this is not Islam. People do it according to what they like and according to how they are raised, how they are grown into the religion.
All right. So before you let me push a little bit more on this. So the book has been given to people, just like the Bible, the Quran, given to people. They interpret it any way they like, and they can become Al Qaeda, they can become Islamic State, and there's nobody to stop them. So is that what we're saying?
Yeah. Exactly, pretty much. That's what we're saying.
Why would somebody say that the problem is not, or that the books, the religion is okay? Is the people that are practicing it?
Sorry, say that again. Why would people say?
Because I hear people say, even on the comment section here, people say it's not the religion that is the problem; it's the way people are interpreting it, the way they are practicing it. Why is it that they have the same book, the same Bible, the same Quran, and they see different things in that book? And there's nobody who has the authority to say you are wrong. So we're doomed.
Yeah, in a way, if we the problem is this. See, according to the religious tradition, there are scholars who we have in the past that believe to be those that people follow. So these scholars, there are 4 of them that kind of like, wherever you see Islam, it will fall within the jurisdictions of one of these imams. So they trace things back to whatever the person says on something, and that's how. But when you still look at that, when coming down, some people can still interpret as, like, for example, you can say, I'm a Muslim, but my Islam doesn't doesn't say for me to hate Christians. And you have many people, so I don't hate Christians. I can pick verses in the Quran that, like he says, to you your own and things like that. And there are some other ones that, and I would say that's my religion. But some other people, on that lower level, some other people can still tell you that, oh, then you are not doing according to Imam so you are not doing it according to Imam so. So you still have all these splinters, and that's why, yes, it's a set of ideas that has landed, and people can pick on it according to. I think perhaps the problem will be the weight that we have given this book and religion right from the start. From my understanding, there have been interpretations even earlier in the centuries after Prophet Muhammad. There have been interpretations that some people have done. There have been manipulation of the story, even the story of the Prophet himself. There have been manipulation of that story to be able to fit what those nations, those leaders wanted their people to follow. So all of these things are still determining how some other people. I mean, I've listened to people that you would consider well-educated individuals, and will be talking and saying that the apostasy law, defending the apostasy law, that it should be, and you know. So all of this, they have reference that they go to. But if you can de-emphasize all of this weight that come from history, that you say you go to according to a scholar somewhere, according to a scholar, all of these scholars, what I say is that they are human beings just like you. You can make your own decision. You can think about, you can do your own research. You can think first think about what is religion supposed to be, and then we take it from there. But it is difficult right now to be able to roll back that idea. But what needs is for us to continue to find ways to enlighten ourselves, to educate ourselves in being able to see the humanity of one another. Otherwise, yes.
All right. Thank you. Let me go back to I Speak the Truth just for 1 minute. I think you disagree with something. Just 1 minute before I go to Jide. Go ahead.
Thank you. So so again, like I said, I think we need to, when we speak about this kind of delicate issues, of course, we have our own opinions and biases, but at the same time, we always have to give a very, very educative position. I seen, for example, when he was speaking, Jide is nodding and said, and this is the danger of speaking things that are probably not entirely correct. So in the instance of, for example, how should these things be carried out? You do not pick and choose what you want to do. And just say, well, it's okay in the religion. You can just pick. There are actually set rules on what you have to follow, the hadith, and you have to follow the Quran. Now, moving on, because this will throw a lot of people off if I keep going into it.
Yeah, let me just hold on. We'll come back to you later. If I gave you 1 minute, but you exceeded that. Let
me just finish with this one point, please. So with the aspect of the fact that he said people for I got thrown off, but I'll remember and then we can.
Okay. All right. Jide, you're next.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll try to be brief as much as possible. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rahman. I really like this conversation. It's very educative. I learned a lot, right? And I was going to say you have so much knowledge. Like, yeah, I mean, I have to get I respect your opinion and I really agree with everything. But I have my question. So real quick, before I even go to my question, I'll say congratulations to your movie premiere that's coming up next week. So yeah, my question is this. So we're talking about a conflict that's been going on now for almost 100 years, right? The Palestine-Israeli conflict. And the point is, like you mentioned too, this conflict is a manifestation of Western imperialism and Arab imperialism. So now I'll break it down. Western imperialism through Zionism, if you know world history and everything that has happened, Zionism is a very strong ethno-religious ideology. And you have Arab imperialism through Islamist ideology, Wahhabism and other forms of sects of Islam, where there's this idea of Al-Aqsa Mosque and that region should be an Islamic state. So you have two dangerous ideologies, very dangerous ideologies, and they are coming from ethno-religious ideologies that have caused so much chaos in this world. So my question now is this: where can we draw a line where there is an occupation of a land by other people, and there is a resistance to that occupation, and what we call terrorism through ethno-religious ideology that is very dangerous? So to clarify that question more, I'll give an example. If you look at South Africa, this issue happened in South Africa. The apartheid regime in South Africa that went on for almost 100 years. They stole their land and everything. And eventually they were able to resolve it to an extent, even though they've not fully resolved it, but they're able to resolve it to an extent, so they're able to live together now as a full South African state, right? Even in New Zealand too, they're able to give rights to the indigenous people and all that, even though they're taking that away. So my point is, where can you draw a line? Because the people that are so-called resisting, they also have a very dangerous ideology. So where can you draw a line? And my second question is, so where can you draw a line between resistance and imperialism? And terrorism, basically. The second question is personal to me. So why did you learn all these things? Like, I mean, as a filmmaker, like, I mean, I wouldn't imagine, but did you study philosophy in school, or you read a lot of books? You just love learning? That's my second question. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. To answer, perhaps the second question can quickly answer. As a filmmaker, what I've always intended to do is I love to learn. I have some experience earlier in my life that puts me in a situation where learning about the world becomes something that's important for me. So I learned to learn, and I realized that we don't know much. And of course, no matter even how much you try to learn in the world, you can't know more than much. So, but it's important to just always. So I have decided that even the films that I do, the projects I take on, I want to use it to also learn. So when I decided on, so yeah, and I went to school. I did my own courses and stuff like that. Yeah, I did liberal arts with concentration in psychology, and I chose that also because I didn't want to. I realized I could study film and do, but you need to write stories. You need to understand human beings and things like that. That was what informed my decision. So so when I pick up this story also, I knew very little, but it's based on what happened when I was in school. And in the midst of how everything was happening, we were also learning more about, like, even the person who started this was an Israeli international student that was in my school at the time. That she came and she had been in the IDF, but she said she didn't want to. She wanted to find a way to stop the war. So that they can all live together. I remember she complained about growing up with Palestinian friends and so in their neighborhood, and all of a sudden they started to disappear, and things like that. So these were how the story. So I used that opportunity also to try to learn, because I realized that it's a complicated conflict that you can't just wobble into it. Making a film about it, or saying anything. You have to really understand what is going on, and that's why it took me a while trying to craft the whole story. And so to use that step onto the next question, which is about where you draw the line. I think it's a tough issue of drawing the lines now, because and just like I said that. Some people I know you would have heard, and people that I respect a lot in their positions, and they'll say, "Oh, this conflict is it's straightforward. There's nothing complicated about it. You're occupying the land and you move." Yes, there are a lot of that that is going on. There are a lot of like how the settlements have been expanding. All of those kinds of things that it comes to us in that you can just give back the land and things like that. But even that has been complicated by building of the settlements, and things like that. But when it comes to the interplay of these ideologies together with with the political structure of what's going on. Hold on, excuse me 1 second.
All right. So we're looking at still pictures from the movie Theory of Conflict.
Sorry. So looking at that, you realize that those ideologies have led to various political decisions over the last 100 years, at least, that we're talking about. They have led to various decisions by both sides. And by that way, they have complicated things such that where do you remove ideology from something that happened? I'll give you an example. There is a place in the film that you have one of the lead characters, Muhammad, saying in the past it was Israel that wanted a piece of the land, but the Arab wanted all of it. Today, it's the Arabs that want a piece of the land, but Israel seems to want it all. Look at those decisions. It's like you go back to 1948. All that time, you look at Israel, you say the people, the Jewish people, they were being persecuted from around the world. And we have all these stories of how everything ended up to come to this region, which, of course, the Palestinians are there now. But they are tied to this historically, because for them, it's not even just religion alone, because their religion is really tied to their history. So they're tied to it historically, but they're there. And we can say we have these people suffering, being persecuted across Europe and wanting to settle here. And in reality, they are closer, of course, many of them from Europe who have been become Europeanized in some ways, but their essence, they're Semitic tribes, just like the people who are there. But then you have the Arabs, all the Arab nations also standing up, saying, "No, we're not going to agree to this." There is this element of religion in their decision as well. You understand? But there is more, which I will point to later. So they decided, no, we don't want that. So you have decisions leading to decisions in there. How do you roll back all of these things? And in that also, we have to keep in mind the imperial agenda that have led to this over there, because I look at that and I look at it and I say, why couldn't the Arabs allow them to just have a small space that they would have there and be there when they divided it? You understand? And like I said, we can say some of it may be due to religious ideologies that they've had, but also we remember in the during the First World War, when Britain was asked the people, the Arabs who were there, that if they could join Britain to fight the Ottoman Empire, that when they get the land, they will give their land back to them, and that they can, rule themselves. And they agreed to that. They fought alongside Britain, and then they won the war. When they won against the Ottoman Empire, they wanted their land. But what happened? They couldn't give them their land. They discovered that England and France had already made another secret plan to divide that land among themselves. So they took this thing away from them. At that point, they have distrusted the British. There is a huge distrust. And at that time, anything that happens through the British, now they don't want to accept it. They see it as colonial imposition. Unfortunately, the leaders of the Jewish people coming from Europe, one of the things that they were doing at the time was to try to look at the land where they wanted to settle. Some of them have been coming in, buying land too, settling one way or another, forming. But their leaders, they wanted to get total control of a particular area where they will call their own. A brilliant idea they had was they will go to those who control that land. Because yes, the governments that control the land, that's where you go to. So they were lobbying the Ottoman Empire to be able to have that piece of land. But then the war started, and Ottoman Empire lost, and the power, the control moved under the Europeans, Britain and France, and now these leaders changed their tactics. They've lost that, then they turn around. They started lobbying Britain. Whereas Britain had done this to the Arabs, disappointing them when you promise to give them back their own land that belongs to them. It's not British land, you know. So, but then you ended up dividing this between them and France. So anything that come through the British, the Arabs already distrusted it. So when the Jewish leaders were coming through the British, because they were just looking at it, political pragmatism. These people control the land, you go to them to negotiate. But then now when Britain was now trying to get them there, the Arabs see that, the Arabs are saying that, okay, now it's these Jewish people you want to impose on us. We will not agree. So in that way, you can see how histories and human deceptions and all of these things, together with ideologies, have come together to create realities on the ground.
Right. Let's thank you, Rahman.
Thank you so much. This was very educative. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, let's go to Eagles Air.
Yeah, Rudolph, thank you so much, and good morning from here. Please, when I joined the program, I overheard you people talking about religion, and when you talk about religion, I was trying to define religion or trying to understand what religion, and I find out that in a simple terms, religion is a way of belief in a God and the activities that are related to the gods. Now, this hour, when my brother asked a question, he was giving answer. He made mention of Ottoman Empire. Then when they talk about Ottoman Empire, as a filmmaker, have you considered the history of Turkey, be a Muslim country right now? Because the time of Ottoman Empire, talking of Turkey, we are talking of it today as a Muslim country, was a Christian country in 1st century. You can believe that. Then have you, a filmmaker, have you come to your senses? Have you reasoned? Have you think? How did the Muslim overtake the Christians in Turkey? The Christians now in Turkey have become a 0.3% in Turkey right now. So as a filmmaker, have you come to look at it and consider to look into the history and make a movie towards it? Secondly, please, other people are asking to, let me ask too, please, I'm begging you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, secondly, why is it so that if you look at the whole nation, the planet Earth, you find that the place they have war, terrorism is an Islamic state, especially Middle East. Have you considered and write a history and what causes this problem, disagreement among them? Thank you.
All right, Rahman. So yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say I have to go now. Thank you so much, Rahman. I really learned a lot from you. This is very, very informative. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Dr. Damages.
Yeah, thank you, Eagles Air. I have considered that. I studied that in history as well. I am well aware that Christianity started in Constantinople, which is in today's Turkey. And the reason why you have it majority Muslim today is due to the history that we all know. As a filmmaker, as you mentioned, I go to the motivations, things that motivate human beings to do what we do. These are the things that I like to reveal to us. You know, we talk about filmmakers being, you know, you hold up a mirror to the society. You know, I believe in going to the root of our behaviors. So that Turkey is now almost 100% Islam today is not surprising. And if to make a movie about it, I would like to make a movie about it. I'll be glad if you, but I would like you to come and help me raise money to make the movie, and then we can do it. But you see, the problem there is the problem of empires. We in Nigeria, we are Muslims and Christians today because of the imperial dreams that the leaders, the people who are Christian leaders and Muslim Islamic leaders in those centuries, they were trying to achieve. That was what happened in their area. It's been a tug of war between them, conquering one place or another and conquering back. Even that's why, when he talks about Jerusalem, they've been fighting over Jerusalem also for centuries. So it's this desire. And one of the things that we don't know today is that religions, that what we call religions, this Christianity, Islam, they were not just religion by themselves like that. They were primarily things to solidify identity in order to be able to fight, in order to be able to expand their territory or defend. For example, with Prophet Muhammad, at that time when he came around, there was no unifying idea among the Arabs for them to be able to. And you had the Persian Empire, and then you have the Byzantine Empire, all powerful and coming all over. They would have been run over and turned into something else. So the uniqueness, interesting thing that Prophet Muhammad did at the time was to use this idea of the religion to unify the Arabs and unify them to be able to turn them into a force to fight back against these incursions. But in the process, it also become an imperial religion in general. And when we say religion, largely organized religion, because I define religion differently from how we define religions through these organizations. So, but largely they become imperial, and they were fighting to conquer more and more land. And when you conquer land, yes, you turn them into Muslims, or you turn them into Christians. That means they become part of you. It is the same imperial fight. Now, we in Nigeria, it's like proxy war that we are fighting when we fight against one another. It's their proxy war in the West to the Middle East that we are fighting. You remember when September 11th happened, when there was the World Trade Center, there were clashes. More than 600 people died in the north because some people were celebrating in support of the Al-Qaeda, and some people were in support of the United States. We clashed, we killed ourselves. The war, what does that bring to the lives of the people in Nigeria? So we are fighting the proxy war, and this is the war that even the people fighting it, they don't understand why they are doing it anymore, because it started as imperial movement. Is when you are able to make the people within your territory one religion, you use that religion to be able to bring them together, and you spread to further region. That's what the Ottoman Empire became in the end, and that's why many of these places that we consider, we call Arabs, they were not even biologically Arabs. Even the Palestinians that we're talking today, we're referring to them as Arabs. They were not biological Arabs. Actually, from some things that I've seen, genetically they are closer to the Jews than to the Arabs. So, but they become Arabized culturally because of the Ottoman Empire over them. And you see the same thing with the West. You have many other countries now, many places that we are behaving like the Westerners, and we are, all this and that, and our mentality we are in alliance with the. That is now it's a colonizations that have entered, gone beyond the physical, have entered into our psyche, and that's what you see in the world. So for them to have Turkey turn from Christian to Muslim, it's the dynamics of these kinds of war, and these are what we need to realize, to be able to, when you are able to see it and you're able to stop partaking in this conflict of empire between two worlds that describe themselves as two different civilizations as they describe themselves. We have to stop doing that.
All right, thank you, Rahman. Let's go to Chim.
Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are, evening. Rudolph, thanks for having me, and thanks for the show. Rahman, it's a pleasure to meet you. I think this is about the second time. And congratulations on your new movie. So I started watching at the point where Rudolph, I'm not sure if it was a question that led to it, but where your answer on issue of religion, you said, if I'm correct, that Islam and Christianity are the bane of the world, and in particular Africa, and that if we did away with it, with them rather, we probably would be better. Am I correct?
I think so.
Okay. So before my question, the one question I want to ask first is, do you live in the US?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. So my question is this. So I hear this, this whole thing about you're not the first person to make some of those kinds of arguments. But the question I want to say is, do you realize that in the midst of anything, there are always mutilations, which you mentioned, in fairness to you, I agree, you stated that. But I guess my question now is, do you realize that most of what we today refer to as Western civilization, at least for somebody who, I haven't studied much of Islam, I know there are things in Islam that are good, because if they are not, the UAEs of this world and the Saudi Arabias of this world would not be as advanced as they've become. Even Malaysia, which is an Islamic state, but in the far east side, very well organized also, it's an Islamic state. So do you realize that what we refer to as a Protestant ethics is the foundation on which most of the Western world was built? So if you're saying these things are a problem, I can see you wearing the glasses, I can see you wearing a good shirt. Look at how wonderfully looking Rudolph is on a Sunday, even though I know he didn't go to church. So, but look at his tie and everything. These are all Western civilizations, but that evolved from part of that Protestant ethic and gave us these good things. But there will always be people who, in the midst of whatever is good, it's like the question Rudolph asked about. I think it was a subtle pushback he was making, where he said something to the effect that, why is that there are people who are always coming to defend these faiths and say, no, it's not, the people are misinterpreting it. We can make the same argument for our constitution. I'm one of those who believes that Nigerian constitution, essentially, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying there aren't things that are terrible or should be changed, but essentially, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the operators who are creating problems. I mean, the guys who rigged the election yesterday, our constitution does not permit election rigging, but who rigged the election somewhere in Ondo State yesterday, and they've been told to go to court. So you cannot come and say it's the constitution that gave them the go ahead to rig that election. So my question is, how do you balance that view that we should do away with religion, Christianity or Islam, because like you said, they've created more problem than we're better for it, juxtaposing that to the greater good that have also come out of it that sometimes many of us tend to overlook because of our immediate problems?
Yeah, thank you. Good question, problematic question, but yeah, what's problematic about the question in the first place is a misconception that what we call the Western civilization, as people tend to refer to it, to think that it's rooted in Protestant ethics, that it's no. Number one, it is not. There are many things that are tied together here. You have to first recognize that. Let's go back to European history in themselves. All the scientific movement that started with around the Enlightenment were not a continuation of Protestant ethics. It was a repudiation of religious ethics. All of these things, because all religious ethics is always tied down to the idea of the God that you believe controlled everything and all of these things. And while there may not be problem in thinking that, but the problem comes when we begin to see you have the God that creates everything, that does everything. You are holding on to it here, but over there they say they have another God that also control and things like that, and then we have the clashes. So the history of these people and the Protestant movement led to shredded the Catholic Church into different kinds of, and what you ended up with is conflict among all of these groups together, and that's why they were killing each other in Europe. But you have people who started to move away from all of this. That's why you have what Rudolph mentioned earlier, which was about the church and the state, to separate the church from the state. You heard them. They were not saying, let's take the good from the church and continue it into the state. They didn't. That's not what they said. They separated the church from the state. So there is a misconception in thinking that all of that is a continuation. I know there are some intellectuals that keep pushing this idea. That's number one we need to understand. If you go to look at it, it was a repudiation. And once you have a repudiation of people thinking that, no, I don't want to admit that God has said this is how this is going to be. No, I want to find out on my own. I want to verify. That's the scientific mindset. You understand? I want to test. I want to experiment and do things like that. Those were, you don't get things like that in any religious context that you are referring to. So these were people who took up this idea of how they were learning in the world, and they were seeing that how things should be, and they were looking critically at everything. And that's how that movement began in that area. And I have a second problem that I have with that is that people tend to consider that as like Western civilization, you know, and it's and that is also a fallacy, because it is human civilization starts when people start to use different tools. You know, we start to move forward in different ways, and you have things going on in different regions of the world that you could consider scientific as well. They were not just labeled as because once you have the Western empires over everybody else, and it becomes the order of the day that we are all thinking within this framework of that Western mentality. But when it comes to civilizations, all the African tribes too, they had ways of verifying things that were real. They were taking care of the sick in all these different places. It wasn't like some kind of magic that didn't work. They had herbs, they had things they were putting together. You have people, they were building all sorts of things. And if you go, I'm glad there is a lot of what I would call like a resurfacing of Yoruba knowledge recently, that you'll be able to see, and you'll be able to get an idea that all of these things that we think were Western knowledge from Western civilizations were not just like Western civilization that we accept. And I think it's important that we see these things very clearly, because when we don't see it clearly and we keep labeling things Western civilization and things like that, then we subject ourselves, we second ourselves to these Western civilizations that we feel like we want to learn. But there have been confusion over years. Human beings are human beings anywhere, and the brains that Isaac Newton and all these people had in doing what they were doing, people had it all over the world. It wasn't just even that. I would say Africans had it too. They had it all over the world. It's the human brain. But when you are in different circumstances, to be able to deal with human problems and come up with human solutions, that starts to come from the different. And the idea at that time, when they revolted against the religious order of their world, they rebelled against it, and that's how they started to make all of this. That's how the industrial civil era came from. So to see that, we need to see that all of these things are human development, and by them developing, they imposed it on many regions through the empire business, and they make people to think that they were stupid. They didn't have that idea of being able to come up with some of the great, whereas many great ideas were there that they had already suppressed. And a good example is the politics. I've always looked at the problem that we have in Nigeria. When you look at it, the British came and they had their system, and by the time we said we wanted independence in the 60s, we are already many of the people who are agitating, they were Western educated in England, within that system, within that mind frame, and they came. The system of governments that we had in Nigeria, in different parts of Nigeria before, those systems were working, and and one of the things you notice is that the democracy you are bringing and the language of political systems that they brought to Africa, you started using it. And then there were areas where you will throw a word, a language, and because these people, these babas and mamas that were ruling this part of Africa, in Nigeria or whatever, before it was Nigeria, they had their own names, their labels of what they call something. They have their instruments that they've developed over centuries that they were using. And by the time you realize that some of these instruments coming from the white people were only seen as new and Western and civilized simply because they didn't have the name in English. So someone who's able to conduct a political system, who's able to conduct a governance in one region, simply did not know what democracy is, and automatically he became these idiot people who don't know anything. You understand? Simply so now we realize, we find ourselves that we are playing the game of language, and the game of language has defeated us. By the time we drop our own and accept this new forms of government, we become confused, and in so many ways there's so many things that it becomes difficult for us, because we have to leave our own and start learning a set of things that was brought from some other places. So all of these are problems in those questions that I think if we are able to tease out and understand all those things, you realize that the whole idea of dropping Islam or anything, that's number one. And excuse me, Rudolph, let me settle on, and when we come to the whole idea of dropping the religion also, I don't have problems with the religions, and I don't think in terms of dropping or whatever, but they have been presented in a way that it is confusing, it is dividing us. The Yoruba people, for example, before Islam or Christianity came, they were living together. The system of government was functioning very well. There was no religion to say someone belonged to this religion or another. So there was no issue of someone wants to lead somewhere and then you'll be thinking of, oh, maybe that person is the religion of something you don't understand. That did not exist. Yet they had many traditions that you have people and people who are Shango, Ogun, and all of that. All these things were different ways of understanding the world, and they kept doing it as well. And whenever they had to do a festival, if there was a Shango festival, Ogun festival, all of them will do it together. It doesn't matter that it's over there, that village or those family that they run the, no, they all did everything together. So there was no division of religion of anything like that among them. And they were able to do that and live well, even to the point that we were looking at conquering other parts of the world. Because we were building empires too, like you had the Oyo Empire and things like that. So the whole idea that we have to belong to a religion is a problem in how we view the world, number one, that we need to understand beyond it. And once you understand that you don't have to belong to any religion, then you start to have, this true religion will start to have less hold on you. And it doesn't matter. You can study the Quran and learn. There are beautiful things in the Quran. You can study the Bible. There are beautiful things in the Bible that you can learn, and then you can take, and just like the way we take things from Socrates, we take things from all the different people, we can learn all these texts, you understand, and bring them as philosophers. But to form an organization around them and say we become the people of Jesus, we become the people of Muhammad, it's a problem.
All right. Thank you, Rahman. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, sorry, I'll leave for now. I'm trying to come back before you round up and see if I can be part of it. I need to run an errand. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Eccentric, before I come to you, there are some questions from the comments that I want to throw your way, Rahman. This is from Lighthouse. It says, you see Nigeria being Islamized. So I think the context is about what, not just what's going on now, what was going on before the Europeans came. And whether, because whenever they talk about it, they think about that, how Europeans came and stopped that process that was coming down the Niger, and whether you see Nigeria being Islamized. The other question is, someone wanted to know, where in the Quran did it say that the land belonged to Israel? I don't remember who said it, but you can take on this too before we go to eccentric.
Yeah, the first question, I will say it was happening because that era, as we said, it was era of all of these different places trying to conquer, and it has been happening with the incursion of Islam in Africa. So you see that coming, but in what form it will take, I don't know. But at some point, we have the Uthman dan Fodio, who did the jihad that he did and came down conquering and all of these things. So if the British weren't coming from the other side, we don't know the extent it will come, it will reach. And the same way, if the Muslims were not trying to Islamicize the place as they were coming down, the British was willing to also conquer everybody. If you look at the history of the colonization, even you see a lot of interactions between the colonialists and the Muslim North. There are a lot of decisions that were being modified from how they relate with the people in the South compared to how they relate to the people in the North, simply because of the intensity of the Islamic religion in the North. So so they were all coming to conquer, and history just happened to go the way it went. Now that half of us, we are Muslim, the rest half is Christian, and then we have the tiny strip of traditional practitioners in between.
Thank you. Eccentric cast. The next.
Hello, Rudolph. Good morning, and Rahman. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question, and of course, I have some kind of rebuttal. I want to see what you think about it. So I think so one of your statements earlier was based on the wrong premise that Jewishness is an ethnicity instead of religion. We have a lot of proof to show that Jewishness is a religious ideology, not an ethnicity. And that most of the Jews that were brought to Palestine were East European. And also, I don't know if you've come across this part of history that says that Hitler was the one that turned Jews into Semites. And the reason he did that was to prevent them from escaping pogrom through conversion. I can reference the book for you, but I don't have it offhand. A lot of Jews that did not agree to be exported, to be deported to Palestine, were put in the chamber. Also, do you know about Balfour Declaration? Because that was written prior to World War II, and it shows that the West actually had intention to control that region, and even Napoleon wanted to make Palestine part of France because of the strategic location of Palestine, because they wanted to use that to control East Asia in order to to have their Western ideology control that region when the West was conquering and spreading their supremacy, right? And also, most of your comments are against Palestine, and I'm thinking, what is wrong with people resisting colonialism? Because that's what we saw. I mean, if there was internet when Europeans came to the land called America right now, there were a lot of resistance from the native people, and most Muslims there we're doing insurgencies, things that we see Hamas doing right now. These are like local people doing insurgency.
All right, thank you.
Would we have the same the same criticism that we have for the resistance group then if we had internet?
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you. The Palestinians being there, the idea what you first mentioned, Hitler turned, yes, I'm not aware of that, and but what I'm aware of is that the Jewish people have been an identified group of people in the world, and that have been persecuted, and they've been living, and it's not just persecution is not the only marker of their history. They've been in existence. I mean, the Bible, the Quran also were talking about them as they were existing back in thousands of years ago. So they've marked themselves out using the religion and how do we define tribe and things like that. They formed themselves into some sort of tribe, and they are a tribe, and religion that they formed became part of the markers of their tribe. So that, I think, it settles it as they are a separate group of people who have identified themselves separately like that. So that is that answers that. The part about them resisting and the Balfour Declaration, yes, I think that should show part of what I said earlier, how after the Britain deceives the Arab there, telling them that, assuring them that they will give them back their land when they win it over from the Ottoman Empire, but then instead were parceling it out between themselves and the French. So this already created a distrust in the minds of the Arab, which rightly so. So when the Balfour Declaration and all of it, you see, even those times, we can point at it and say Britain was trying to help the Jews. Britain was also a conflicted nation at the time when it comes to the Jewish question, because all of that time they wanted to. First, the declaration was an evidence to the Arabs that the Britain wanted to impose the Jewish people on them. That's number one. That is one of the evidence of the complications, things that happen, like accident of history, according to how human behaviors that we have. So number two, Britain was not also just saying they wanted to help the Jews. In around the time, shortly before Hitler started the Holocaust, many Jews who have been trying to escape Germany, some of them wanted to go to England. England didn't want them to come to their country, and many of them, sometimes when they rode over there in the ship, they got there, they would turn them around. But because you were having a lot of all these Jewish people coming to Europe, running away from Germany, where would Britain put them? Because they didn't like them at the time too. The discrimination was still continuing. Don't forget that it was in these countries, that's where they are fighting discrimination, a reason why they decided to go to the land in the Middle East in the first place. So when Britain sent back those ships, they sent it conveniently to Palestine area where we have the fights now. So when they sent them back, they're sending them back because they don't want them in their land as part of the discrimination against the Jews. But as they go back and they are landing over there in the Middle East, the Arabs are seeing them coming through these colonialists who they've learned to distrust. You see how things can get really complicated and messy.
All right. We have few more minutes left, so I'll come to you, Jagan, but before then, let me get one more question from the comment. This one is from Florence. It says, do you see Usman Danfodio as a terrorist?
That asking that, do I see?
Yeah, him as a terrorist.
Well, the label terrorist, we use it a lot for things, in so much that the reality on the ground is complex more than just those labels. I don't like his incursion, of course, in the coming down. Would I consider? I can consider it a terrorist thing, but it's not like a terrorist as a. I believe we have to look at the world and being able to look at it from everyone's point of view. And yes, his incursion in Africa, in that part of Africa, his incursion coming down, doing all those things, I believe were the root of the problems that we are dealing with today. So was it a terrorist movement? I think I would leave that to however anybody wants to describe it. I don't like it. I don't think it was a positive thing in our world, and but the bringing of it, it's a different thing from his own point of view. Because you have some people who actually, that's a part of the problem with religion that we have. Someone who's trying to convert another, trying to preach for you. In many instances, they wish well for you. They feel like, this, our God is this and that. It's like they want you to join and be, although subtly at the bottom of it, there are some different psychological things still going on as well. But they may have that goodwill. Oh, we want to bring you into the fold of the righteous, of the this and that and things. So all of those things are also part of it. It's coming from a misconception that we have been conditioned to think about in the world. So yeah.
There was an impression you gave about the Yoruba land before the Europeans and the Arabs came. Someone asked, why did Yorubas fight themselves for 100 years?
Yeah, they fought themselves because
if there were no problem before the Arabs and the Christians came.
I said there was no religious problem. Not that there was no problem. People living together, there's all sorts of things that we have. It's the way of the world. That's what we're trying to do, to be able to live together in peace, to be able to have a better understanding of what they had. Different reasons, but it wasn't religion. That's my point. They weren't fighting over religion.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Jagan.
Thank you all very much. I greet everybody, and I underline that we are coming to the end of the weekend. I'm hoping that things went well for those who are enjoying their weekend. Rudolph, I thank you for, again, bringing on people who are alert to the deep discussions we need to have. We need to have deep discussions. We need to. And those deep discussions are going to come with boost battle. They're not going to come politely if we're going to get anywhere, to be frank, Rudolph. I would appeal and greet our man Rahman. And I must tell you that I like the field that you are in. It is an extremely important field in our today's polity. How do we tell stories? I grew up in the West supporting the cowboys against the Indians. And that was simply narrative that was given to me.
Yeah.
When I started to think and think deeply about what this thing called cowboy is, I thought, oh boy, are you stupid? How can you be on the side of the cowboys? Then when I now changed to the side of the Indians, I began to see things much clearer as to the way this idiotic, crazy, bamboozling world works. All those Nigerians in the diaspora, especially those in America, they're just supporting cowboys anyhow. All of them, without missing one of them. They love the idea of the cowboys. They've forgotten that they are the Indians. So I just come to settle that you have a big responsibility. And I'm going to join you there in that responsible position. My question is.
Thank you.
My question is, the amounts of stories that need overturning that the world and the West and Hollywood has given us, do you see the responsibility, and do you see that we may have or may not have the wherewithal to reply to a good 160 years of film that's largely been against us? That's my question.
Thank you very much. I'm glad. And I agree with you. These are the battle that we need to engage in, because the story has gone really wide and deep among us, to the point that to the point that to be able to roll back the destructions that this thing has done to our psyche. It will take even sometimes it frightens you when you're looking at it, because it's so deep and wide. It's part of it as we talk about Western civilization right now. It's part of how that thing has modified the way we think, the way we see the world. And yes, the only thing we can do is also to now start telling our stories, and that's one thing that I have come to believe as I make films. I always tell myself as I write that I'm telling my story to ourselves. I know there is this movement of trying to, the rest of the world, and yes, the rest of the world. The rest of the world will come when you speak to the heart of yourself, and I think, because at the end of the day, in this deep emotional level, we are all the same. But there are things that we live in our own world, and we experience world in a certain way, and imperialism has destroyed a lot of that. And that's why we talk about religion also. When you talk about religion, people tend to think, there is this connection that people have formed with their religion. Religion is like the closest things to people's hearts. It holds on to our fears, and all. And when you now talk about, oh no, we have to do away with religion, it becomes a difficult thing for people to take, because it's a difficult thing in itself. But the idea that we need to let people see is that if I say, be wary, be careful of these religions, I'm not telling you to leave what is in your heart, but people need to start paying attention to it. And by doing that, you have to start paying attention to the stories that we tell ourselves, to all the stories around us, to the movies that we love, that the heroes have become ingrained in ourselves, that in whom we see models. And there are other films that you see, and you'll be a white person who will be the what do you call, the hero, or whatever position you can, and you identify with them when the movie treats you as a human being, and it's not trying to impose something on you. So these are the things that we need to do. And it's not an easy thing, to be honest with you. It's something that will take a while, but we have to be consistent at it. And I'm very happy. That's one thing that I'm really happy about, like our movie industry in Nigeria, and how in many other countries around Africa, it's been influencing, and people are telling their stories, because when they see how the Nollywood came up and moved, and all of these other countries, the way everyone is now also telling their own stories. So by the time we tell this more and more, what I'm happy about is that human beings that we are, whether it's our children, not us, many of us are alive today at this age, we may die in our mentality. But I'm happy that there will be materials enough for children coming up to see that were not available to us when we were growing up, that they'll be able to see, and they'll be able to see their world better than the world constructed for them. And one of it is please, I want everyone to look at the whole idea of Western civilization. There is no Western civilization that is putting something over you.
Well said.
So we have to look deeply and be able to deconstruct these things. It's a construction on us. So
I don't want to take away from anything here, Rudolph, but I do just want to add very quickly to what was just said, especially in regards to Western civilization. Western civilization is an amalgamation of the world's knowledge concentrated in the West. That's what it is. It's nothing else. Everybody always gets freaked out by terminology instead of being able to break it down.
Yes.
The West, Europe especially, went around the world at a time that we as Black Africans had already been around the world. So when they've gone around the world, they're now picking up all the different artifacts and knowledge about the whole planet, and they've concentrated it and used it in a manipulative way against the rest of the world. That's what it is. It's not the white man.
It is of the whole
The white man at the helm, but it's not the white man's thought process entirely. So I just wanted to end there. Thank you.
One last question from me, and then you can give us your final words. So we have you were in my class, and you talked to my students about Soul Sisters, and during that time I asked you about Nollywood and looking at what's happening with Afrobeats and how they've been able to go across the world, work with American musicians, have very successful careers. But we can't say the same thing about movie makers or actors from Nollywood, whether it's Nollywood abroad or Nollywood in Nigeria or the rest of Africa. Why is that? And when are we going to see, what is the obstacle that is stopping people in Nollywood from having that crossover? I know that we have impact in communities, brown and Black communities, but not the way we have with Afrobeats.
Yeah, you see, I'm sorry to say, Mr. Rudolph, I know, as I mentioned in your class also, the obstacles are number one, for filmmakers and all trying to tell stories and the some films that have been made with Hollywood stars and things like that have not been very successful in the way that, and I think that's part of the problem. I don't necessarily want to see it as like bringing, because to think connecting with the Hollywood, the way the question is phrased, the way the mentality of it, it's still holding one industry above the other, which I disagree with. You could turn it around and say, when would these Hollywood people be coming to, crossover to make films that Nigerians, Africans would, within the framework of our stories. So I think it's part of the mentality of how we have put supremacy over of this Western creation above ourselves. Hollywood is a brilliant, wonderful industry. A lot of great films, a lot of, but African filmmakers, storytellers are African filmmakers, and we tell stories. I would not want to go and look for a Hollywood star to be in my film just because I want to connect with, have a Hollywood star. I see everything in terms of telling stories, and I think it's important in those films that I think that were not successful. Perhaps part of the reason why they were not successful so much was because the whole idea was to be able to connect with Hollywood and things like that. And if for me, that's one thing that I really want us to be careful. Even as I mentioned Nollywood now, within myself, you probably know, Rudolph, because I've made that statements to you, complaints to you before. I don't like the name Nollywood, as we call our films, because I feel like, number one, it makes it sound as if it's seconded to Hollywood. It's an industry that I believe it stands on its own. It's an industry that's growing on its own, all its own merits. We don't need to name it to sound like Hollywood. So that's number one, why I don't like the name Nollywood. And secondly, even the name was given to us by a New York Times writer here in New York. People who thought who just put a label, and it's the same way that they've been giving us names and things like that all along. And once we pick the names determine how we look at ourselves, how we look at the world, and in this way, it can determine how we look at our films. But the only reason why I stopped talking about the name is simply because it has just gone all over the places. I feel like, well, you just leave it. But fundamentally, I don't like the name simply because I don't want to feel like that industry is trying to be like Hollywood.
The only reason why I mentioned that is that a lot of filmmakers that I talk to, they are struggling. The industry is continuously changing. Most of them are leaving the industry because they're not making money. But you can't say the same thing about people who are making music. They are making money, and you know they are making money, and you see how they're able to sustain their craft. So is it not a problem? Is it the logic of the name that
Can
is...
I come in to try and answer your question?
No, not for you.
That means they're not looking for knowledge. Fair enough.
So, so is it a problem about the name, or is it about being able to sustain the industry?
Yes, the question is valid in that way when you frame it like that. But you see, also we have to keep in mind, you see, the structure that makes the music industry to be so successful like that was a structure that was already in southwestern Nigeria before, that they were doing with the music industry in the southwest. They had that structure of ways that they were able to get the musicians able to sell their music. Even when Nollywood started, Nollywood also was taking advantage of that infrastructure that was there. So that helped the music industry quicker than it would help a lot of, but Nollywood started as it started in there, and you have a lot of the movies still taking it. It's just that the way things are growing, we need to build more on this infrastructure to reach wider. I mean, Nigeria has 200 plus million people. You understand? If you have movie theaters all around in many different places well enough, you think you can imagine how much money movies will be making, and they will be just before you even go outside of Nigeria. You understand? Look at was it towards the end of last year that we're talking of Funke Akindele's movie that hits 1 billion naira. You understand? If things are going well, the political system is not breaking things so down. That 1 billion a year ago that she made that 1 billion compared to the dollar, that the value of that 1 billion has reduced today. You understand? That is the problem of the politics, all the economic system as we are doing it. But within the industry, you know, everything is still going on. Build more cinemas, have all of these things, and there were people that are doing it. I mean, in the last 10 years, you don't have the kind of cinema and the number of cinemas you have in Nigeria now. You don't have it at the time, you know. So it's improving, and you know, it's getting there.
All right, Rahman, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. And unless you have any final words, so this movie premiere will be on December 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Coolidge Corner Theater. All right. Thank you so much again, and we hope to see you, especially when you make the movie based on Chimamanda's short story, Private Experience. Okay. All right. So we'll take a break. When we come back, we are going
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure talking with you all, and I learned very much. Thank you.
All right. So we take a break. When we come back, we'll review what happened, and Jagan will have a chance to weigh in.
When your mazolo bio, akwa mazolo bio, Max, if you bunye go kwanu mo no fube nazo olaga ni biazigo, mawulaga do ni biazigo, akwa wilo chiyo bikora puzo, kona bazia. When your mother because I'm on my water. sorry. Ibia wunyane gwana mo. Ulagadoni biazego. Mo ulagadoni biazego. Abamba wilo chilo. Bigarabu zoro. Anawaze. Mazi wekoma. Odoguno kwerezineka. Onyoma nigadelemo. Mazini bazingame. Ibu go with melody. You got to know where you're for. Odogu na chalanoka. Izi wande mliga delemo. Olagado ni pesigo no. Mo olagado ni pesigo. Awama wilo chilo. Bigora buzo. Anabaze. Say, onyama zoro no. Awama wazoro no. Sorry. Ibia wuyano kwa namo ofube naro. Olagado ni piazugo, nasa boy. Olagado ni piazugo, awama wilo chilo, biko rapuzoro, anabazi. Aiz. Odogu kenero bikechofo, ama kwa mnika kugogia. Waligwe kwelo nako. Get your mobile back. Hey, you want? Eku kampune kene. Amago ninso. Chukwe mekalumo. Ike chukwu negaje. Esi nwanne m ekene dị. Ịlapụ ife niile na-eme wee bịa. Ka gosili na anyị na gị bụ nwanne Wisdom ga-adị. Ka nye gị maịkị ka ogobanya bụ egwu. Isili mmaksi ọ bụ na-etiri egwu a. Malụkwa malụ n'imego m ife ọjọọ. Wesi gị nwanne m ife ọkụ na-echọlụ na ngeme. Wisdom onume ekene gị. Bama ihe ihe biko lapụ. Zoro, 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 zoro. Duru joy na bugwa Hausa Sokoto Ujembe nwilo Anu solo nwe manofia nara Onye nwuro zuru ike.
Good with numbers?
Oh yes, better than you could think.
Really? That true? All right. How much do you have in mind then?
Well, I was thinking you could give her $8 an hour.
$8 an hour? You must be kidding me. How much do you think I make here?
How much you want to give her?
Me $4.
Oh, come on, Sam. That's way below minimum wage. You cannot do
that's
that
the
to
government's
her.
minimum wage. This is under the table. I'm taking a risk here.
We're family.
Take it or leave it. If the government comes here, who they're gonna take? I'm the one taking the risk. That's all I have.
You know that's not fair. You know that.
Nothing is fair in life, Dad.
When does she start?
I was watching TV, a documentary.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. And we had a conversation with Rahman Oladigbolu, who is a movie director. And he has a movie coming out next month called Theory of Conflict. So let me go to you, Jagan. Jagan, what was the comment you wanted to make?
Well, I just wanted to assist you a little bit in the question that you asked, because for me, it's obviously clear there's a difference between an individual artist and their way of breaking through into the global media through their artistry and skill. But when you're coming with a film and a narrative, there's a lot that is against you, firstly. But even those things that are for you are difficult to attain without some level of subsidization, government funding, lending of this infrastructure. There is no infrastructure. There's just a word called Nollywood, but there's no infrastructure. The difference between what we have in the States or Europe, where film is concerned, is vast. You could go and bring me to a place where they're making film. You go and bring me to a place where they're making film in Nigeria. There's no backing. There's no money. Nigerians are so bad. We are so bad. And when I say Nigerians, I mean all of us, including the government, including the rat that is down there. All of us. We're so bad. It's only when we see success that now we want to put on our back and say, hey, that's us. You didn't do anything. It was the strength of those individuals that did it. We're very bad. And I dislike it. I dislike it a lot because I'm thinking, how do we grow if we're not together? How do we grow if all we're doing is attacking each other? How do we grow if we're not establishing our remit on truth? We establish our association on sand and we want it to stay. It's ridiculous. I don't get it. That's why when I come to this show, I'm highly frustrated because all Nigerianism is displayed here and there. Nobody does anything about it. Everybody's afraid of it. Don't leave me. I've got a headache. I'm not responsible. Send your complaints to all of that. All of that is Nigerianism, but you don't recognize it. You don't recognize it. That's why we would ask strange questions amongst ourselves here. I am frustrated. I'm frustrated before I even came to this platform. It's not this platform that makes me frustrated. I'm frustrated because of the lack of consciousness that we have as a Nigerian people. We can be anywhere. We can see something going wrong right next to us, and we will just watch it going wrong. We'll just watch it. We won't do anything about it. That is part of our being. So now, something like film, the two biggest things for me, if I can put this to you, Rudolph, and we do it on this show, and I feel we should enter it properly because there are problems. The problem of the agitators and agitation in our country that is bringing us down. That's a major thing. The second one is the religion aspect between Islam and Christianity and any other thing. These arenas are things that we need to tackle. And if we don't really be strengthened and tackle them, we're not going anywhere. We shouldn't even fool ourselves. We're going nowhere. I will end like this. Film is like one of the most important weapons that Nigeria can possess for our own expression and for telling the world that, listen, we're not afraid of none of you. It's not by a nuclear bomb that you're going to frighten me. You understand? If you don't have any intellect, then you can F off in all seriousness. In all seriousness. I don't know why we're here to play. Yes, we may be here to have discussions. We don't want to harm each other, but we have tough conversations to have. We really do. And we shouldn't shy away from them. That's what I needed.
Right. Thank you, Jagan. I speak the truth. Yeah, review. feedback.
It's half of Turkey is in Europe, please. I love you to respect my new name. So
All right.
it was what I just wanted to bring up were certain questions you asked. And you asked those questions, and I don't think he answered them adequately. Or maybe he answered them again, like I said, sometimes we do have our own understanding of things and our own biases. So you asked them again about the question of the reform and why it cannot be carried out. And very importantly, he made a statement that resonated with me, in which he said, he told Jide that a lot of innovations have happened in the religion, that even the stories of the prophet has been skewed. What I wanted to bring to him, that understanding how the religion is structured and understanding its method of record keeping, that will be impossible. And if you would ask me how it would be impossible to skew the stories of the prophet, I would say, well, if you understand how the hadith, for example, is compiled, there's something very important, in which you might have heard this phrase by the Arab and especially Islamic theologians, which is a chain of narration, which means there is no anonymous character in telling the stories and giving the rules of how the religion is carried out. For example, the life history of the prophet can only be told by people that experienced it, his own companions, which everybody knows, and then they have to be authenticated. You get what I'm saying? So every single thing you see in the hadith, which we have to remember again, the hadith, if you know what the hadith is, it is basically the life and the teachings of the prophet, not as opposed to the Quran, which they believe is a revelation. So you go to the books like Sahih, Bukhari, Muslim, Dawud, Tirmidhi, and Muslim. Najah is the last one. You go there, and every single thing you see, from how to live your life, what to do when you go, for example, to a bathroom, what to do when you have intercourse with your wife, every single aspect of life you can imagine, even sneezing, even greeting someone, even chastising someone. Everything is in there. So it is virtually impossible to skew the stories of the prophet. So this is what I wanted to bring to him. Now, thankfully, someone brought the issue of the Yorubas having strife, even though they had a monolith, or basically a monolith religion. So he brought up the fact that they worship their own deities, Ifa and Shango. But it was good that someone brought it up. But still, they had the 100-Year Wars, the Revolutionary Wars. They had the Kiriji Wars. They had the wars between the Oyomesi and Ogbomos, and all these other wars, even extending to the north. Now, finally, Eagles Head asked a question. And this question, I think, usually when I hear this question, it tells me where a person is leaning. And while I believe that this question that Eagles Air asks is unfair, I do also understand that usually it is coming from their own understanding based on whatever manipulation the media has put into our various subconscious, right? So he asks about terrorism, and he basically ascribed blame to the Palestinians. Why is there terrorism amongst those groups? I would like people to go and find out the first group of people to institute terrorism in the Middle East. And I know people will be surprised to find out that it wasn't the Palestinians, as most of them will think, for a long time, for decades, the Zionist Israelis conducted a reign of terror on the Middle East just to get that land. For example, you would recall, Rudolph, I think you would be aware of the bombings of the King David Hotel, the bombings of the Reuters building, the kidnappings of the Reuters staff, the bombings of the British Embassy, and things of that nature. So those, in essence, were what I wanted to bring up. But I would hope the guest is listening, and I would hope the listeners would imbibe some of these things and go do further research on this issue.
All right, thank you. Half of Turkey is in Europe. Righteous Man.
Yeah, Rudolph, I just need some clarities, maybe from the panelists or maybe from you. I can't understand the reason behind the stories that are being told today against the Jewish people. Now, when I hear that the Jewish nation was created in 1948, it marvels me, how can countries within the bracket of 1,000 years, 600 years, create a nation that have been dated back to 4,000 to 5,000 years ago? I can't just imagine where that lies are coming from. How can Britain create the Jewish state that have existed for between 4,000 to 5,000 years ago? How can the United States create a Jewish state that have existed between 4,000 to 5,000 years ago? And now there is no archaeological, there is no religious proof that the Palestinians owns that land in the last 4,000 years ago. Now, when you go back to history books, which the Bible is one of them, Israel or the Jewish nation had been exiled for 3 times. The last exile of the Jewish people were AD 72. And the return of the Jewish people to their homeland occurred in 1948. So are you telling, is someone telling me, or someone should explain to me, that those histories that are dear for us to read, they are babash, they hold no water, that someone has been existing for the past 5,000 years. And when people are making concession today, they will tell you the Europeans created the state of Israel that we have today. No, Israel, this is not the first time they have gone on exile. They have been exiled before, 3 times, before this last exile that occurred in AD 72. So I want to know on clarity with evidences, archaeological evidences, dynasty evidences, because the Jewish state never had empire, just like the Southeast in Nigeria. You will read about the history of the Southeast, you will discover dynasties, but they never have empire. Just like we have the Oyo Empire, the Benin Empire, Osmodanfodio, all those empires. The Igbo people have never had the vision of expansionism, of taking over other people's land or ruling over them. Just like the Jewish people, they've never attempted to rule over other people. That's why they never run an empire to colonize others. But they have a homeland which they have lived and occupied, had their kings that ruled over the land for about 5,000 years ago. So can somebody please help me and explain why somebody is claiming that the Jewish people were created by Americans and the Europeans?
All right, thank you. Eccentric, you can answer him. I think you have an answer for him.
Okay, so I'm going to refer you to a book written by Dr. Shlomo Sands. He's a Jewish professor in one of the renowned universities. The book's actually free. You can find a PDF version of the book. You can read the one titled "The Invention of the Jewish People," and there are so many other books. The book goes into a lot of things, language, culture, and what makes a people. What actually makes a people an ethnicity, right? So if you read that, there are other works that you can read that shows that Jewishness is not an ethnicity, and the people that argue that Jewishness and ethnicity are usually the conservative, the right wings. They try to exclude other members of the faith, from the Jewishness, right? From Jewishness, they because the face of Jewishness is usually Europeans. There were Jews, all over the world as a religion. It's spread, and Jewishness was part of. Christianity, they all share the origin. They all share similar origin, right? And Jewishness entered East Europe. I'm not familiar with the history, but it entered East Europe way back when, right? And it was never an ethnicity, right? And this is an evidence here, right? When the Jews were being persecuted in Europe, like the guest mentioned, right? There's a book. I don't have the title on hand. It mentioned what really actually led to the so-called persecution of Jews, right? Or like the targeting of Jews by Europeans. The first one. The second one was during the Second World War and whatnot. And there is in the second book that I don't have a title. I can write it on the comment section here. I've written it before. The author, who's a Jew, he's in the UK. He's a well-known author. His works you can find him on Amazon. He explained how Hitler made Jews an ethnicity, and the purpose of doing that was to prevent them from escaping through conversion. And they escaped through conversion when they were being targeted in France, prior to Second World War. They escaped through conversion because they are Europeans, and there are, we could talk about archaeological evidences. There are there's an archaeology. If you look at archaeological works that are not coming out of Israel, there's no proof that there were people there who live in that land in the old Levant, because you need to understand the land itself, where we call Palestine, wasn't actually a country. It's just a province of another big nation called Syria. The nation of Syria, which, believe it or not, it encompasses Egypt. Egypt was part of it. Iraq was part of it. Palestine was just a small province in Syria. So the Syriac civilization actually predates the timeline that you're given. The Jews lived. So with that said, it's a proof that there was no country called Israel. Because it can be a country when it's a small province inside a country, right? The Palestinian people, the Romans were the first people that went there and colonized them, right? And renamed the place to Judea. So there is, if you read Shlomo Sand's book called The Invention of Jewish People, he explains how, Jewish, the Jewishness is a religious ideology, right? I'm gonna end on that. If you need any other question, if you have any other question, you can ask.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Jagan.
Thank you for that. I always find our brother electronic whatever, beg your pardon, I always find his utterances rather diabolical. A lot of the times I think he's kind of varying on some accuracy, but then he brings so much levels that I'm thinking, what are you talking about? You just said that the Romans were the first to conquer that part. I mean, that's just rubbish. You shouldn't be saying things like that. I beg your pardon, but you shouldn't. They were not the first. They were far from the first. You didn't really lend the kind of education that righteous man was asking for. I believe you said a lot of things that largely were woolly, very woolly, no direction. And I'm not even sure where your own opinion comes into it. And I find people's opinion on any historical matter valid because it tells me, sorry, my brother, sorry. It tells me that individual has read to the extent that he now can pronounce this as a truth, or he can pronounce his view upon the history. But when people are just and they don't want any response, it's like, what are you talking about? I'm afraid I have to say that. What you just said is a crock of nonsense. Cheers.
Rudolph, if you would let me, you want to speak, Eccentric?
No, excuse me. I need a rebuttal. I need a rebuttal on that point. I need a rebuttal on what he said. Sorry, man.
Because
I need a rebuttal.
after you guys have gone at it, I'll just
If you're an intellectual, right? If you're an intellectual, we both of us, we are grown people. You know, you're in your 50s. I'm in the 40s. I'm in the close to mid 40s. If you make statements here and provide sources, I'm not going to say it's nonsense. I'm just going to go to your sources to see what your sources says and see what evidences that they provided. That's what you should do. You know, you should do that before you say that what I said was nonsense, because I provided sources as much as even the guest did, right? I do not have all my sources at hand because we don't prepare for this, for these live events. If we prepare for these live events, I will have books. I will have my books lined up here. I will have all my notes. I will have all these things ready, right?
Eccentric Einstein.
Unfortunately, you didn't listen to what I said. All you did is
you have to, for you to say that what I said was nonsense without providing actually a rebuttal. That's not a way to discuss intellectually. It kind of you're trying to rubbish our discussion. That's not.
My brother. You're too small to teach me anything. Now let's carry.
So Rudolph, is it okay? Let me just throw in my little knowledge.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I think the danger of answering this question by righteous man is when people ask these questions, do they really want to learn? Are they really willing to accept your opinion? Not take it at face value, but are they really willing to say, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go check it? And why I say that is because I don't know if this happened when you on the show, but we've discussed this severally. Well, severally is the wrong word. We've discussed it multiple times. And we've discussed this over time, and which usually leads to this. Everybody has their own beliefs. The people that want to come through, even people that attempt to come through a neutral stance get ostracized. And people that have a set belief criticize them like you see now. So in essence, what I'm saying is, I don't think Eccentric Cast is wrong, but it'll be nice to go read what he proclaimed because it tallies with what I understand about the history of that area. Now, what I'll say to Righteous Man is this. First of all, and I've said this on this show before, using religious texts, i.e., the Quran, the Bible, and proclaiming them historical books is usually where people falter. These are not historical books. Yes, they might hold some historical accounts in them, but you cannot, for example, rely on the Bible or the Quran for historical analysis. That it wouldn't make sense. Now, you're right. That place, like Rahman properly said, has been changing hands over time. The Romans had it, the Byzantines had it, the Assyrians had it, the Greeks had it, the Arabs currently have it. At some point, the Europeans had it, of course, through the Romans. The Greeks have had it. The Iranians have had that area. So it is a place that everybody has been fighting over for millennia. But like we discussed about 2 or 3 days ago, how then, which is the position Eccentric is making, how do you determine who owns it now? If 3,000 years ago, you agree that they were sacked in 72 AD. This is what you guys are saying now. They were sacked. That was the last time they were sacked. But prior to that, they've been sacked numerous times. What is the easiest way to determine who is a Semite, who is indigenous to that land? Forget whether it's a Muslim or Christian or Jew. We just want to know which individuals have traces to this land. And you would agree, well, I struggle to say that word because I know you will disagree with me, that it is the Palestinians. You cannot go pick up someone from present-day Israel right now and do a DNA genetic test and it'll tally with all the other Semites in the area. We are not saying there are no Jews that are indigenous to Palestine. That's not what anybody is saying. Of course, nobody is going against the Orthodox Jews, for example. But what everybody has a problem with, including the Orthodox Jews, are the European converts, which is what the centric cast was saying. The European converts who have no linealogical ties to that area, except I converted Ashkenazi, Sephardic in Eastern Europe, and then they came there after the pogroms in 1939 to 45, and then using the Balfour Declaration as proof that we have to be on this land. Then from 47, you have the Nakbas, you have the 67 wars, up until today, you have Gaza, you have the genocide being committed today as we speak. So I think in a lot of ways, which is what Rahman said, Africans need to take their mind away from Islam or Christianity. And if they are really interested in studying the conflict going on in this area, we should try to do it with an open mind. Because in all reality, it is none of our business.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Half of Turkey is in Europe, just in case you guys don't know. Righteous man, thank you for your question. On my part, the only thing I know that I think we should all agree on is that the Bible or the Quran, they are not historical books. I don't think they are. And if we start from that premise to look at what is going on there by calling them historical books, we have already failed. Used to say that when the premise of an argument is wrong, the conclusion is going to be wrong. So you cannot go from there and get to something that is right conclusion. Anyway, unless I think on this note, I was waiting for Forefathers. I don't know where he went to. He's not responding to me, but I think he wants to run a show, and I think he will probably now start a new show, and you can continue to on that platform. I want to thank everybody who joined me today in this conversation. Half of Turkey.
Can you send the link, Dr. Rudolph? Can you send us the link?
I don't have it. I don't think he's set up yet. I'm not sure, but thank you, Righteous Man. Thank you so much. Eccentric, thank you. Jagun, thank you. I know you are backstage. Chim, thank you. And all the people on the comment section, I appreciate all of you. And next Sunday, we are going to have another interesting guest that will join us. I met quite a lot of people at the conference I went on Friday at Yale. And I will be lining them up to come here and explain to us what they are thinking, what they've been doing. And they are quite interesting people who have been thinking about Africa in a long time, and they have books and they have ideas. So we will encourage them to join us in days and weeks to come and share those ideas with us. Now, on behalf of everybody at the back end, thank you all for joining me. We will be back on Saturday, and there might be shows on Fridays and other days. But thank you all. Righteous Man, thank you. Centric, thank you.
Wega mazolobio Akwa mazolobio Max Ibia bunye go kwanu mo no fube nazo Olaga ni piazugo Mma olaga do ni piazugo agbanwe ilochi yo biko rapụ zoro ka ọ nabazi ya onye ọma zoro biko abọmma wetara ndosari ibia onye nịgwa na mụ ulagado n'ibia zigobenu mma ulagado n'ibia zigo abamma wilo chilo biko rapụ zoro ọ nabazi ya mazi wekowa odogwu na kwere ezineke onye ọma n'igadele mụ mazi n'igbazi ibugo with melody ikechukwu wee chọfọ odogwu nachala n'ọka ezi nwanne m n'igadele mụ Olagado n'ibezigbo mma olagado n'ibezigbo amama wilo chilo biko rapụ zoro anabazi te onye ọma zoro de amama wa zoro de sorry ibia onye nụkwa na mụ ofu ube narụ Olagado n'ibyazigo nazaboy Olagado n'ibyazigo abamma wilo chilo biko rapụ zoro anabazi odogwu kenelu bikechofo amakwa m n'ike agwụgọ gị oligwe kwelu nnukwu get your mobile back. Hey, you want? Eku kampune kene Omogo ndị nsọ Chukwu emeka lumo ike Chukwu negaji esi nwanne m ekele dị ịlapụ ife niile na-eme wee bịa ka gosili na anyị na gị bụ nwanne wisdom ga-adị ka nye gị maịkị ka ogobanya bụ egwu isili mmaksi ọ bụ na-etiri egwu a malụkwa malụ n'imego m ife ọjọọ wee sị gị nwanne m ife ọkụ na-echọlụ na nkeme wisdom onume ekene gị gbamanwe